What's up everyone, Adam here from Cape Crawlers, and today we're going to stretch out our FMS FCX24. Welcome back to the channel everybody. Today we're going to continue our FMS FCX24 build. I've just got one modification today, but it's a big one. It's probably the most highly recommended and suggested modification for this rig that I've come across thus far. So many people have DM'd me on Instagram or mentioned in the comments of my FCX24 videos that I've got to get this mod. And that is the McCue RC extended linkages. So this is a great mod because it really seems to sort out the wheelbase of the FCX24. It really feels like the FCX could benefit from a longer wheelbase from the factory. It's a little like squished if you look at it just from a visual perspective and from a performance standpoint. So this is a great idea to stretch the thing out. So I'm really excited to put these on here. We're going to take a look at the linkages themselves. We're going to compare them against some trio linkage that I just took off. We're going to do our baseline course runs. We'll put the linkage on and then we'll do our after runs. And hopefully we're going to see some dramatic improvements in the vertical climbing. Because I feel like after the last build video that we did, after I put all that brass in the portal covers front and back and the new shocks and everything, I feel like my vertical climbing is really suffering, and that I really am optimistic that the lengthened rear end will really sort out all of my issues. So I'm really excited to put these on here. I've got high hopes for these. Everyone that I've talked to who has installed these just says it really kind of sets the FCX24 to where it should have been from the factory. And I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of content really bearing that out. So I'm pumped to try it out. So this is going to be a fun one. So why don't we dive in, take a little closer look at the linkage, and we'll go from there. So let's take a closer look at these links and we'll compare them to the trio ones that I just took off. Let's see. Oh, they're big. You can see that. Okay. So like the trios, you get rid of the Y-link on these things in the back, and you get two individual links. Man, these are nice. First time I've even opened the package to look at these things, so I'm just checking out the fit and finish and the design. These things are rugged. I can tell just like the feel of them. Those are not going anywhere. See, they got the bend in them for some high clearance action. I like it. Again, nice and thick. These things are beefy. Good looking too. They've got almost like a steel girder type of look to them, which is nice because if you've watched my other videos on other builds, you know I'm not a big fan of the raw 3D printed material, but these are good looking. I like it. It's got these raised pieces on the exterior of the links. It kind of gives it a cool look. Doesn't look just like a unfinished piece of material that just came off the printer. So that makes me feel better about putting them on. They're long too. Longer than I thought, definitely. So let's take a look at... So let's compare these to the trios. So here's the trio lower links that I took off just recently. And here is the McCue ones. Look at the, holy moly, look at the difference. Wow. This thing is going to be long. I knew it was going to be a big difference, but boy, that is more than what I was expecting. Make sure I got the right. Yeah, I got the right links. Man, I was questioning if I got the right trio links here. And here's the upper links. So the trio uses the same style as this, but these are the upper links for the trio linkage. Holy cow. This thing is going to be stretched out. The pictures and things online do not do it justice. They are almost double the length of the OEM length linkages. For our drive shaft, I'm going to use my Jeep Gladiator rear drive shaft. Looking at the eBay listing and the description sounds like the Gladiator drive shaft is a good fit for this build. So if you're doing this, just be aware that you've got to replace your drive shaft because you're stretching it out quite a bit. So the Gladiator drive shaft makes sense because it's got quite a bit of extra length compared to the other 124s. Let's look at that's going to be significant size difference there. This is going to be awesome. Man, this is going to be a big difference. I can tell already. I mean, just that much extra length, this thing is going to climb like a savage. I can tell. So let's do some course runs as it sits right now. As always, we want to get our good baseline on the course. Particularly want to focus on some climbing. And then we'll throw these links on, see how they look, and then see how they perform. Okay, here we go. Start with the chute. No problem. Oh my God, I wish you could see the view from where I'm at. This thing was just reaching for the sky. I think it rode a wheelie the whole way up. I'll try to get a different angle. Oh my gosh. Better that time, a different line. Still reaching for the sky though. Right, let's try the escalator. Nice, does good there. So now that we've got a good look at the linkage, we've kind of compared them against the trials. Now I'm even more excited to put these things on here because the length difference is so extensive. I think this is going to make a big difference. So let's get going on the install here. I'm going to show you bits and pieces of this. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but we can walk through some of the highlights of the install and I'll take you through my process, what I'm doing, because there is some kind of retrofitting we got to do. Like I said, we're going to put the Gladiator drive shaft on here. So we're going to try this out, do it together, see how it works out. So let's get started. All right, so here we are fully disassembled here, getting ready to put the new links on. So I'm going to try assembling these upside down, and shout out to Matt from 2FM RC for the inspiration here. So when you install these normally, you remember in the beginning I said that they were bent for high clearance. Well, they're actually not, because how they're built to be installed is, this would be facing down. So you've got this kind of triangular portion facing down. I want to flip them so that we've got, like a traditional high clearance link, like you see how these linkage look in the front with these RC all-wheel drive linkage. I want that triangular portion to be facing upwards for maximum clearance. Now I saw Matt did this on his channel. I'm going to give it a shot. He ran into a little bit of binding issues. Hopefully I don't run into the same, but if we do, then I'll try to trim it like he did, or maybe I'll try running it both ways to see which one I like best. But first go around here, I'm going to try to install them the high clearance way like Matt did on his channel. So I'm gonna start putting these things together. It looks pretty simple. It uses the hardware that comes with the kit. Got some nice stainless hardware here. Should just be bolting these things up. Let's start putting it together. I got my Gladiator drive shaft ready to go. So we're gonna assemble all this and we will reconvene after we get it going. Here we are, links are installed now. They went on really easy. It was a little tricky to figure out which way the links went. I had to go back to the eBay listing a few times just to look at the pictures, make sure I got them. So PSA here if you're installing these. So the short section from the shock mount to the linkage point goes in the back. Now I'm trying these upside down to get the high clearance aspect of it, like these front links here. They are binding up, but I found that they bound up regardless. I had them on the other direction as well, and I think it's just because the links are just so thick that you're going to run into friction there between these two mounting points just because these things are just so burly that they run into each other. Now I could try to smooth this out here, but I don't have a Dremel, and I'm just really too excited to get them out on the course. But nonetheless, fit and finish is excellent. They went on perfect. Everything mounted up, just like a factory OEM part would. Gladiator drive shaft bolted right up. So this is ready to go. It's got plenty of room. So let's get the tires on it and then see what it looks like all assembled. Here we are nearing final completion here. So here we are with the wheels and tires on it. Looks great sitting here. It's I love how flat it is across the bottom. I think installing these with the high clearance aspect is the way to go. Like I said, I tested both mounting positions, and I think upside down, I didn't notice any difference in articulation or fit and finish. So I'm happy with how this sits right now. It's got a nice long, low stance to it. I really like it. Just looking at the chassis, I just feel like this is how it should have come from the factory. This just looks much more balanced, and the black, these nice black links, it goes really well with the setup that I've got. I was afraid I was really going to miss my anodized red links, which I still kind of do, but overall I think it looks really good. These nice thick black links work really good with the red shocks and the red axle housings. So it's a nice looking setup here. Nice and smooth. What I did do with the linkage, so it's like screw them in until they're tight and then back it out about half a turn, maybe a little bit more, because you don't want to over tighten the links. If you tighten them too much, they bind even more because they can't move. So don't over tighten the links. Put them in snug, back it off a little bit, and should be good to go. They move nice and free. So let's get the body on here and see what the finished product looks like. Here's the finished product. Check it out. I think it's awesome. These links really do exactly what folks have been telling me. No big surprise there. They really set the chassis up to the way that I think it should have been from the factory. It's so much more balanced and just looks so much more organic with the stretched rear end. Just a really good modification, I think, here. And the more I look at these things, the more I like them. I thought I was really going to miss the red linkage, which I still kind of do. I really like that red anodized finish and matching underneath, but these look really good. And the more I look at them, they've got almost like a reptilian look to them. Just very cool craftsmanship here and design work. So I'm digging them. A couple things. So they're really thick, and just the way that they're set up, they're really beefy. So you do limit yourself from an articulation standpoint. You're just not going to get a lot of flex with these the way they're set up. Now, shout out to McCue. So I put up a post on Instagram, a story on Instagram, and he and I have been chatting back and forth, and he's already given me a great amount of insight on how to set these up a little better for articulation if I choose to. So he recommended, just like Matt at 2FMRC did, to Dremel off a little bit of this friction point here. If you want a little more articulation, you can also mess around with the screws where they mount. You can mess with the, how much you have for play, how tight or loose they are. And also there's these little collars in here too. You can pop those out if you want. So he gave me some great tips on how to set these up for a little more articulation. So I'll probably play with that a little bit more. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how it is. I did reset the shocks to their factory position. If you remember before, they were mounted up here to get a little more suspension travel. But I was finding that they were just binding up. The shocks weren't happy with the position on these new links, which is fine. So I moved them back to the original towers, and now they're super smooth. See, working great there. But overall, I'm just really impressed with this mod. Fit and finish is great. They went on super smooth, no issues, just like a factory part, bolted right up, no problem. So why don't we take this out on the course? We'll do our after course runs and see how much we gained from a climbing perspective with these things. All right, course runs with the new linkage. Let's try it out. Start on the chute. Good, no lift on that whatsoever. Now let's try Hell's Gate. Oh my goodness. I think that was a speed record. Now the escalator. So Hell's Gate was so easy. I don't expect any hiccups here. Nice. So let's talk about the links. What do you think? I'm pretty impressed. That line on Hell's Gate, I was pinned the whole time, right from the bottom straight up to the top of that thing. Didn't let off the throttle one bit, and the thing rocketed up there like a bona fide hill climbing rig. So the performance gains, especially from a climbing and an uphill perspective, cannot be discounted. This thing made leaps and bounds in terms of performance gains with the stretched rear end on the climbing front. Unbelievable. Going up there before with the high clearance links that I had on there prior, it was riding it was hard to see from the footage, I'm sure, but in the first section, it was I swear it was riding a wheelie up the whole thing, like just teetering the whole way up. And then to be able to just pin it and win it the whole way up, no problem, was crazy. So I guess let's continue with the pros. So performance, unbelievable performance gains for sure. It really seems to sort out the chassis, both from a visual perspective and from a performance perspective. The extra length just really seems to just work all the way around. I think it looks better, performs better. The rig just seems to be happier with the longer wheelbase. Just works great. So performance and the balance and the just the correctiveness, I guess I should say, of what these links offer is two really big pros in my mind. Fit and finish is excellent. They're cool looking links. I say this a lot, but I'm not a big fan of the 3D printed material. but these are really cool. Like they've just got like a really neat finish to them. On the outside, they've got kind of this reptilian kind of cyborg look to them. It's really cool. So I'm happy with how they look, and I think they're so rugged, very strong. They aren't going to break a link on these things whatsoever. These things are going to take a beating, no problem. And I see no issues with longevity on these links. Definitely well made. Let's talk about the cons. And there's not a lot of cons. The only cons are really in just how I feel about them based on what I like with my builds. Number one is that you do sacrifice articulation. And articulation and performance aren't necessarily correlated 100% all the time. In some cases, a lot of articulation can actually hinder performance. So I got to take that with a grain of salt. I love my flexi builds. I love the articulation and all that range of suspension travel and everything. But I might have to take a different approach with this build and really kind of adopt the performance focus with it. And that's fine. That'll be fun. I am so impressed with the performance that I am somewhat overlooking the loss of articulation. But I will say shout out to McCue RC. He and I were chatting on Instagram after I put up a couple posts or stories about having the links and getting ready to put them on. And he gave me some good pointers on how to get additional articulation. So one is that I can take a Dremel and kind of file down some of the material where the two links are intersecting and getting hung up on each other. You can take a Dremel and kind of smooth that out so you have a little more range. If I was to flip them over the traditional way, you'd have a little more clearance there and could potentially get more articulation, although I didn't experience much gain when I ran them that way. He also said to try messing with the links, the mounting points of the links. So if you loosen the screws a little bit more, you kind of have more play in the links. It's similar to like my 1 O-ring approach. So if you loosen up the screws just a little bit, you get a little more articulation because those links can move a little bit more. But he also said that the lack of articulation is not necessarily done on purpose, but it's a known fact that when you get these links, it's kind of by design that they're going to limit articulation because they are so thick and chunky. So that's not necessarily a con, but if you're looking for increased articulation, then you're not going to get it with these links. That's honestly, that's my only complaint, is that they seem to, I lost some articulation, not a tremendous amount, but for me, any loss of articulation hurts. But like I said, I just have to adapt. And I'm going to run them for a while. I like it enough that I'm definitely going to keep them on there for a little while. I really want to get it out in real world conditions. I think it's going to be a beast on real rocky, hilly terrains. So I'm anxious to try it out in real world conditions. I'm also anxious to try it out at speed in the second gear. I think it's just going to take off like a rocket with that longer wheelbase, and the thing's going to be a slingshot out of the gate on that second gear. So that's going to be fun. But all in all, highly recommend the links, and shout out to McCue RC. I'll put a link down in the description for the products themselves. Go check them out, and he's got a bunch of other products for the FCX24s and other builds as well. So definitely great products, highly recommend them. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the links? Let me know down below. Should I keep them on there, or should we chase that flex? I want to hear from you guys. As always, I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video.